Hi, and good evening, and welcome to our second session of The Between. So, well, obviously, as I just mentioned, this is our second session. Last session, I described The Between in a little bit more detail. So if you want to find that information out, go back and check that episode out. But broadly speaking, The Between is a game of Gothic monster hunters in Victorian London, seeking out the various dangers that lurk in the night of London and dealing with them in the manner that they see fit. This game is by Jason Cordova. It's published by The Gauntlet, and you can check that out at the link down in the bit below. This game has been arranged through The Gauntlet, which is an online role-playing group. We get together, we play games much like this one. We have an online calendar where you can sign up to play in sessions. We also have a number of podcasts. We have a gaming magazine called Codex. We have forums as well. You can find information on all of that stuff on the website at gauntlet-rpg.com. Again, there'll be a link to that down below if you do want to check any of that out. So without further ado, I'm going to ask our characters to, ask our players to introduce themselves and the characters that they will be playing. I will just go through in tried and tested fashion with going through in character keeper order. So, excuse me. So yeah, Jose, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, please.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jose, and my pronouns are he, him. And I'm playing Lady Camila Betancourt Davies. And the playbook for her is The Explorer. So she has led in expeditions overseas to far off places. She is from the upper class. So she has a lot of wealth and a lot of privilege. And she likes to use that to her benefit. Yeah, I'll leave it at that as a general introduction.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. Next, Elle, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us about who you'll be playing as this evening.
Sure. I'm Elle, pronouns are she, her. I'm playing Fujisawa, the factotum. Her pronouns are also she, her. She is a transplant to England, to London from Japan. And she is in the employ of our vessel, Priyanka and so she kind of takes care of things around Hargrave House and tries to keep you lot safe and happy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Daryl.
Yeah, so I am playing the aforementioned Priyanka Balakwa, who will respond to she, her, and miss, but does not feel terribly moored to any particular gender, and he prefers to use they, them pronouns. Priyanka is a child of the British Raj and has a very unique style, is often seen in dove feather cuffs, tall heeled boots with lace, and a jeweled blindfold that she will generally wear over her eyes. And so their vice is Sunday morning mass, and they have a very strong presence that they use to elicit what they need from other people.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Brian, if you'd like to, again, introduce yourself and tell us a bit about who you'll be playing this evening.
I am playing the Acolyte, Professor Alois Cockburn. He's a tweed coat with leather elbow patches, darting eyes, and a gold pocket watch. his vice is rare books, and he is a member of the Esoteric Conclave of the Darkened Moon. So he has a mystic amulet hidden away on his person, and yeah, they are an organization involved with occultists and artists, and yeah, that's what I got so far.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So yeah, and for the benefit of those, well, both of those playing and those watching, the Acolyte is a custom playbook that I'm currently working on, or have mostly written at this stage. I'm more or less happy with where it's at, but we'll see how it shakes out in play. Apologies in advance if it goes weird. But yes, so yeah, as mentioned, yeah, the Acolyte is kind of a member of a secret society, whilst also performing tasks for Hargrave House, and the playbook sort of plays into some of those ideas of kind of dual identities, potential betrayal, and so on and so forth, depending on exactly how it all shakes out. So that's great. Thank you very much,
Brian.
Oh,
could you just for my edification pronounce the first name of your character one more time so I can have it right?
Alois.
Alois. Okay. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, as this is our first time meeting Alois's character, we will be detailing out some items that we will find in his personal quarters, and then I'll also call on Brian to detail an additional item for everyone else's personal quarters to fill that in. So yeah, I will. I'll just go in character keeper order again, if that's okay with everyone. So, Jose, do you have an idea for an item for Alois's personal quarters?
Yeah, I'm thinking that Alois in his personal quarters has a study by Hieronymus Bosch for one of his paintings, The Seven Deadly Sins. And it's full of esoteric symbolism.
Nice.
I think Alois has a book on demonology bound in human skin.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And yeah, Daryl.
I think that Alois has a small writing attaché with a very particular bottle of ink in it that is made from not just ink stone, but also a number of other mystical minerals that are purported to have certain properties when used in particular kinds of writing.
Excellent. And I think that that we might find I'm going to say a half-written treatise on some esoteric subject that Alois is working on. And yeah, we'll give you a moment, Brian, to write those down, and then when you're ready, if you want to call out the items that you would like to add to everyone else's personal quarters.
Yeah, so it was a treatise on. Did you give the subject or no? It's just
no. I think that we can assume you can detail that as and when you bring it into play.
Treatise in progress.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So because I had time to to watch you all play from last week, I've got images of everything. So for Lady Camila, it's a pair of handcuffs and a key. I'll put it in the chat. And then Fujisawa, okay, I found this image and it kind of just had to be this. It's a kintsugi teapot, but it's just a clearly not Japanese teapot, but that has been repaired using this Japanese method.
I love that. Thank you.
And for Priyanka, it's a magic lantern and a collection of chromatrope and probably some other slides, but chromatrope slides. So that's the slide itself has a little handle that you turn to like animate it.
Love that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We will kick off again. I know we sort of touched on this at the end of the last session, but I'll just remind people again. If you haven't yet, you can change your 2 optional dawn questions to be whatever you would like at this point, as we are kind of finishing off the dawn phase and moving into the day phase.
So I have a question about the dawn questions.
Yes, certainly.
About dawn questions. So I'm trying to choose them. I know there's these 2 electives, right, that we choose every time of the day.
That's it, yeah.
And I think I understand how they work mechanically, but I'm trying to understand the intention behind them. Are they a way of us communicating to you the kinds of scenes we want to have, or are they just mechanical in terms of our XP? I think I'm getting tripped up by trying to game them, and so some things in them I can't control. I can't control whether the mastermind shows up or not, or something like that. So I guess I'm feeling a little tripped up by them.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. And yet, no, it's a bit of both essentially. Some of them obviously do very much send a signal to me for the sort of scenes that I want to set. So yeah, like obviously, if you do pick, you like want to interacting with the mastermind and stuff, that is a clear signal to me that to kind of try and throw that in. Others are more there to sort of guide you towards thinking of the sort of scenes that you might want to frame up. Often, like in particular, as we're about to get into, often the day phase can be a good time to get in to sort of fit in scenes that will explicitly play into the sort of stuff that you want to explore. But yeah, no. Broadly speaking, yeah, it's a bit of both. The idea is that yeah, they obviously when that happens is when we check that in again, that will get you XP. But yeah, it can be both. It can be both kind of a signal to me and the other players, obviously as well. If you have certain things in there that you're looking towards, but also as a kind of reminder to yourself. So obviously, like the ones you've currently got selected, the chilling dead-eyed monologue. That's kind of
That's on me if I choose that one. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I have a follow-up on that because I have an idea for this is getting ahead, I know, to the day phase, but it's related to the dawn questions. That's why I'm asking it here. I have an idea for a scene in the day today, but it would be a vulnerable move. But I'm the only one who has a condition at the moment. Should I kind of shelf that and wait until more people have conditions?
No, not necessarily. As long as people are cool with having that scene, I'm sure people will be. That's absolutely fine.
Okay. All right,
and,
that changes what I'll do then. Okay, I'll change those questions.
Yeah, no worries, not a problem. And yeah, obviously you can the way we'll get this in a second, but I'll go over it now because it's kind of part of the same conversation essentially. But the when we come to the vulnerable scenes, or getting vulnerable scenes in, obviously generally speaking, the day phase is the best time to do that because that's the time when you as players have the most control over what you're doing. Sometimes it will be possible to fit one in the evening, but I won't necessarily be as gracious with allowing you the time to do so in the evening, depending on how things go. But sometimes, obviously, the situations will align that will be a good moment to have one. But yeah, when it comes to the vulnerable move, you can always request to have a vulnerable scene with another character, and it can potentially be indulging in either one of your vices. So you can say, "Oh yeah, I'd like to have a vulnerable scene with Priyanka, and I would like us both to be going to mass together," kind of thing. You don't necessarily have to. When you request a vulnerable scene, it doesn't necessarily have to be your vice that you are going to be indulging in. You can kind of negotiate that between yourselves, and obviously the person whose vice is being indulged in gets an additional benefit on top of the clearing a condition. So we'll touch on all that in a moment, I'm sure. But no, that's fair just to get that all out there so people know where we're at. The other thing before we kick off, I'm going to ask back to Sorokin, Jose or Lady Camila. I believe you have a Mask of the Past to narrate. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to come back to that later?
I could do it now.
Cool. Then yeah, let's go with that, and then we'll have you do that, and then we'll jump into the day phase.
Okay, one quick second. I just want to pull up something. Oops. All right, so my Mask of the Past are always related to, or have to be told from the perspective of the boy who was lived in a village that the explorer went to. But I'm going to switch that, if that's okay, to a girl, if that's all right with you.
No, that's perfectly good.
Here's an image of her, and I've also put her in the London tab. Okay, so I'm supposed to narrate a flashback to a time when the explorer first arrived at your village. Was it a joyous moment? Was there something ominous about it? Okay. The first time Lady Camila entered our village, I was 14 years old. She arrived after the first rainy season with a small group of white men and an Arawak interpreter. They had traveled by boat up the Esquivo and then 2 weeks through the rainforest to reach us, a hard journey that no other expedition of white men had ever attempted, since there was no promise of gold or riches in our land. We were no El Dorado. Upon first seeing her, more than her white skin, what struck me was her unusual height and the precision of her long strides as she walked. People gave way before her like leaves on the surface of water. They still do, I suppose. She sat down with the elders and spoke to them through her interpreter. I couldn't hear what they said, but I remember her raising her pale hands and making broad gestures. The elders' faces looked bewildered at times, but yet also hungry for something she seemed to be offering. In the days that followed, she quietly sought out the women of the village, asking them about the plants they used for healing and where they could be found. Although I couldn't understand English at the time, her voice conveyed such calm and certainty. She gave us little glass beads and other trinkets that none of us had ever seen the likes of before. We were enthralled by her strangeness, and her promises of new worlds. All of us, save my mother's mother, who remained quiet and held herself apart. One day I overheard her say to my mother that Lady Camila was like a beautiful white crane wading through a pond full of frogs, planning the day she would gobble them all down. her words would haunt me in the years to come. That's it.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And so now we will move into the day phase. So yeah, in the day phase, the first step I will always take is to present a new threat if there are currently less than 3 active threats, which there are. We only have, I'll do that in a second as well, but I'll also just quickly recap, particularly because we've got Brian joining us here tonight. For the first time tonight, I'll go over the threat that we have so far and the clues that we have accumulated for it. So the threat that we're currently investigating is the Limehouse lurker. The owner of an opium den in Limehouse, Jenny Johnston, has reported that a vampire, she may not have used that term, but you certainly understand that, has been preying on people in Limehouse. It was obvious that the vampire that has been feeding on these people was small, has the body of a child. I believe, and forgive me if I'm misremembering, but I believe that the tell was that the puncture wounds were close together. They were closer together than you'd find in an adult set of teeth. We have, as ever, we have a couple of questions to answer as part of this threat. The first question is a threshold question, so it has to be answered before the other two, either of the other 2 questions can be answered. And that threshold question is the vampire young or old? As in, how long have they actually been around for? Well, the fact that they are in a child's body is fact, but it's whether they are a newly turned child or they have been in a child's body for centuries, potentially. Depending on which way you answer that initial question, well, that has a complexity of 4, so you will be subtracting 4 from the number of clues that you assemble to kind of prove your theory when you go to roll that. The second, you then have an option of 2 other questions to follow up on that, depending on whether you decide whether the vampire is young or old. If it is young, what was the child's home life like before they were turned? And that will allow you to resolve the threat by luring the vampire into a scene reminiscent of its home life and then destroying it or making arrangements for it to safely feed on a regular basis. The other question is, if you decide that the vampire is old, where is the vampire's nest? And answering that question will allow you to resolve the threat by infiltrating its nest and then either destroying it or convincing it to leave London. And you currently have 4 clues that you have gathered for that particular threat, which are that a drunkard claimed that a small childlike voice from the shadows had been castigating them for their excessive drinking, which I believe was someone particularly around the Dog and Whistle pub. There were violently discarded milk and sweets at the site of where Xiao Donghai's body was found. There were bunches of flowers left at the of lilies in particular, left at the door of Chala Bell's, one of the other victims' home. And finally, there was a thick swarm of bats over a specific place, which again I think was related specifically when the clue was revealed, was related specifically again to Xiao Donghai's body being found outside the Dog and Whistle. So those are the clues that you have so far. Obviously, you can continue investigating that threat during the day if you so wish. And then I will be introducing a new mystery for today. And this mystery is the St. Petersburg Mirror. So, Edwin Belmont is an assistant private secretary in the civil service, assigned to the India office in Whitehall. He has recently been approached by a blackmail gang demanding sensitive information on British plans for Afghanistan. Edwin is aware of other recent leaks and fears he is not the only target of these blackmailers. Insisting that he has been diligent in his own personal security, the only thing out of the ordinary he has done recently was visit the renowned medium Madam Sorokin, who impressed him as surprisingly insightful. Wanting to avoid the scrutiny of his peers in the India office, and knowing that the occult is their area of expertise, he has made contact with Hargrave House to ask for assistance in determining if Madam Sorokin is linked to the blackmail ring. In particular, he is concerned by rumours that she has recently received the St. Petersburg mirror, a supposed scrying device of considerable power, as a gift from the cultural attaché to the Russian embassy. Madam Sorokin has a parlour in the East End, and she is also supposed to be holding a seance at the house of the widowed Lady Cadwallader, with several notables in attendance in sort of the coming evenings. So that is the situation that you're presented with. And I'm going to ask, I think this one, it feels like a pretty obvious one for Lady Camilla. What seemingly innocuous social engagement does Edwin meet you at to make contact with Hargrave House? And why do you trust his instinct about Madam Sorokin?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The question is, I've just lost my place. Yeah. What seemingly innocuous social engagement does Edwin meet you at to make contact with Hargrave House more broadly? And why do you trust his instinct that that Madam Sorokin is engaged in, is involved in this somehow?
I think it's some kind of high tea that is put on by one of the geographical societies, not the Explorers Club, but one more closely connected to the diplomatic corps that he is part of, that Edwin is part of. And so, although Lady Camilla doesn't come to these events very often, she does like to keep those channels open. And so Edwin approaches her there, knowing that she's part of Hargrave House. And I think Lady Camilla sizes him up very quickly and decides that he is just a very sensible, no-nonsense civil servant, and that he would suspect some kind of occult plot or conspiracy behind the blackmailing scheme, or that he would even be guilty of some great transgression, seems unlikely to her. So she assumes that he has come for good reason, and that this is out of character for him. And so she takes his request seriously.
Brilliant. Thank you. So that is sort of the initial setup for our second threat. So as ever, this threat has a number of questions available for it, with associated opportunities. And again, I've put all of these into the threat tab in the Character Keeper if you want to kind of read over them as we go on. But the first one is, and I will point out before I begin that the first two of these are all basically alternate ways of resolving the threat. So the question is a little different for each one, and the opportunity it gives you to resolve the threat varies slightly depending on which one you go for. Obviously, realistically, there's only any point in answering one of these initial three questions, because answering any one of them will give you an opportunity to resolve the threat. It just depends which angle you want to take on it. So the first question is, what trickery and deceit does Madame Sorokin deploy in order to dupe those who come to her parlour? This is a complexity 4 question. And answering this question will allow you to resolve the threat by exposing Madame Sorokin as a fraud and discrediting her in the public eye reducing the risk that she will be able to find further victims. The second question is, who is truly behind the blackmail ring, and how are they using Madam Sorokin as a pawn in their game? This is another complexity 4 question, and that will allow you to resolve the threat by dealing with the power behind Madam Sorokin. And if Hargrave House feel that Madam Sorokin is useful, you may be able to recruit her to your cause. The third question is, how do you know that not only is Madam Sorokin a true psychic, but currently is only using a small portion of her potential? And given time, what could she achieve? And that is a question with a complexity of 6. And that will allow you to resolve the threat by bringing Madam Sorokin under control, whether through force, magic, or reason. Approach carefully, she could be an asset, but she might be too dangerous to handle. There is one final question. This is kind of independent of resolving the threat itself, and that is the St. Petersburg mirror genuine? And that's a question with a complexity of 2. And if you decide that the mirror is genuine, that will be available as a reward at the end of the threat, if you're able to get your hands on it, basically. So that is our new threat for today. Obviously, we have the Limehouse lurker still going on in the background. We also did last time as well have our first introduction of our mastermind for this season, Lord Falkenberg, who we received our first clue about. So with that, as it's the day phase, I will go through and ask what people want to get up to today. If there are any particular scenes that they would like to frame up, if there's anything they would like to go and investigate, people they would like to speak to, vulnerable scenes, and so on and so forth. So I will. I'll start with again. I'll just go through in character keeper order this first time around. So. Lady Camila, I know obviously we're already, you've already expressed that you're interested in having a vulnerable scene, but yeah, have you any thoughts on what scene you would like to have regarding that, or any other scenes you might like to get involved in? We also can kind of frame up the, if you want to kind of have a discussion with Edwin, we can kind of frame that scene up as well, but we won't bother too much about the timeline as you would, learning of this new threat.
Okay, so I have an idea for a vulnerable scene with Lady Camila. It would happen at Hargrave House, and I have, it's almost vignette-like, but there'll be some opportunities for interaction, hopefully, with whoever's with Lady Camila when it happens. And I'm imagining, maybe if Daryl, if you'd want Priyanka to be part of it, that would be cool. And then otherwise, I'm open to possibly going to visit Madam Sorokin with somebody if anybody's going. I'd love to be part of that, but I don't have to take the lead on anything on that at all. Even though Lady Camila likes to take the lead on everything, I guess. She can't hold herself back.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And yeah, Fujisawa, how about yourself?
I think Fujisawa would like to accompany Priyanka on whatever excursion she goes on to, or they go on today.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, we haven't actually seen much of Fujisawa and Priyanka together yet, so that would be cool. Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Yeah, Priyanka, how about yourself?
I think that we would like to discuss what happened last night, the various experiences that we had, and probably have a freewheeling discussion on what we think is the age of the vampire. I feel like we have enough evidence to make a strong, posit a strong theory. Other than that, I think that also it would be good to have like a daytime scene with Camila and or Fujisawa or both, depending on how we want to structure that. I would probably, it sounds like I could be second in both of those scenes, so I'm fine to be in both of them if that's the way that we want to play it.
Sure thing, sure thing. No, that sounds good. And yeah, we can, if you decide you want to kind of do a theorize, we can just do that kind of at the beginning. And the kind of the theorize move is a bit of a like meta move in some ways, so we can kind of just have that discussion and see where we go with it. It doesn't have to be kind of strictly time limited, that one, so much, but that's cool. Yeah, I think I do find that like the beginning of the day phase or the beginning of the sort of the evening phase are good points to kind of put those conjectures in place. But yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, Professor Cockburn, how about yourself?
I think I'd like to just stalk Madam Sorokin a bit, just follow at a distance, just get an idea of yeah, what her daily routine is, where she goes.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Perfect. So I think where we will start off then is we will start off by going to the answer a question move. So yeah, as this is our first time doing this, I'll just go over a quick rundown on this. So when you answer a question, when you have an open freewheeling discussion about the answer to a question, when you have gathered a number of clues equal to at least half of the question's complexity, and reach consensus between yourselves as players, then you will roll plus the number of clues that you incorporate into your answer, or like kind of explain away as being like red herrings or the like. And you take off the number of the mystery's complexity from that, or from the question's complexity, I suppose, from that number. You'll then roll two dice as normal, add or subtract the number that you end up with. If it's a hit, then your answer is correct. Depending on how good a hit it is, depends on there may be some complications. If you roll a miss on that roll, the answer is incorrect. And generally I will do some sort of reaction. And it should be noted as well that if you roll anything on this, you can, or if you choose, invoke the Janus Mask. That's each one of you can invoke the Janus Mask and increase the difficulty of that. Increase the result of that by 1 tier. So normally when you make a roll, if you invoke the Janus Mask, you get to increase the roll by a tier. To increase the roll by a tier on the answer a question move, everyone has to mark a Janus Mask. So that's a move available to you. I will point out with the question that you will be answering, which is the vampire young or old? Because it is sort of a binary question. If your answer is incorrect, then obviously the answer that you didn't guess will be the correct answer. So if you in some ways, if you fail, it isn't as much of a problem. I still get to react, so it can still get quite nasty, but it is you kind of don't have to re-answer that question if you don't want to. With the more open-ended questions, obviously, if your answer is wrong, then you have to kind of reevaluate and come up with a new theory. But yeah, so as you proposed, are answering this question, Priyanka, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay, and if you want to start outlining which of those old or young, which you think it might be, and how you think some of the clues involved in that, and then we'll get input from everyone else as to what they think.
So Priyanka posits the theory that the vampire is actually old and is much older than a childlike body would intuit, because of the fact that the childlike voice was castigating drunks from the shadows, which is, a very kind of like concerned, kind of caring kind of thing to do. The lilies that were left outside of Charla's door as a way to, honor the loss of the house is a very considerate thing that someone who is young and who is in the throes of bloodlust and new hungers would not be able to consider. And the rejection of the milk and sweets as something that, as probably a far older palate has learned to reject, would make me also indicate would also make me think that it is really not the personality of a child.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any any strong opinions that it might be the other way around, or anything they want to add or clarify with that theory?
I was thinking, just to play devil's advocate, that something about the drunkard claims a small childlike voice from the shadow has been castigating them. I guess it's the word castigating for their excessive drinking. Makes me think that the spirit is angry, not so much caring, but angry in some kind of impulsively angry way. And the violent discarded milk and sweets might be just frustration over the fact that she can't have them anymore, and she's tried, and so she starts creating a mess with them. I'm going with I'm just saying for the young vampire theory. The lilies left at Charla's door. I'm thinking that the vampire is an orphan of some sort, and the only thing that she remembers from her parents' deaths were all the lilies that were at the funeral. And so whenever she feels remorse or regret at her new killings, she brings forth lilies. I don't know about the bats. It could be, it just depends on where they're at. But I'm open to other people's ideas about the bats.
I would also suggest in favor of the young vampire theory that perhaps if this child was turned into a vampire quite recently, they may have known Charla when they were living, especially if Charla was associated with the Limehouse School. So perhaps it's like a specific sort of regret at having killed this person that they knew and liked when they were still alive.
I'd forgotten that detail about the school, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Alois?
I'll say about the swarm of bats, they didn't seem to serve any purpose except draw attention. I think an older vampire would have controlled them, used them for their purposes in some way. It leads me to think that it's young and
floppy.
not in control of all its powers yet.
Priyanka has a theory that the bats are a manifestation of like growing powers and something that would happen as an older vampire would actually like come into their own. But yeah.
No early bats.
But it sounds like I am outnumbered, and that everyone is much more invested in the idea that it is a younger vampire.
We want them raw and volatile, not smart and sneaky and old.
But yeah, I guess is everyone are you cool with going ahead with the young vampire theory, Priyanka?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, cool, no worries. So if someone would like to make a roll, so if you are including in that theory about the bats being a signifier of kind of like a young vampire being out of control, then you can include that as well. And that will give you a flat roll of 0 plus 2d6. If you don't think the bats particularly play into the age of the vampire, then you'll be rolling at -1 to 2d6. So go ahead.
The mastermind clue in is it relevant in this case?
So normally, no. Because you are the explorer, if you can work a mastermind clue into your theory, you can use it.
Okay.
It depends whether you think it has any relevance, particularly to this question.
I could save it too for later, right? For
Oh yeah, exactly. You can bring those mastermind clues basically in any time that they would seem appropriate into the to any question that you're answering. So yeah, you don't have to use them now.
Okay.
It's the same, like again with the as I mentioned, yeah, with the bats clue. Obviously, if you want to bring that into play now, you can. But if you choose not to, you can still use it when you're answering one of the later questions. So I guess, yeah, so my two questions are, yeah, do you want to bring that the bats in on this, and who wants to make the roll?
I would vote for bringing the bats in because that'll give us a better than 50 a better chance of making the
Sure.
roll. If we don't bring the bats in, we have a less than 50-50.
Yeah, that is very fair. And like I said, I think the bats, that explanation for the bats made perfect sense. So that is awesome. So yeah, if somebody, oh well, also I think again this is in here somewhere, but here's the link to the dice roller. Obviously as well, if you want to use physical dice, that's also cool, but that is there if people want to use it. But yeah, so who is going to make the roll on this on our first answer a question roll? Since when we get into a Mexican standoff mode,
I think it should be Lady Camila.
I was going to say the same.
Yeah, it looks like you've been volunteered there, Lady Camila.
Yeah, I hope you guys don't overestimate my rolling mojo. I got snake eyes last time I rolled. All right, but that was last time. Everything's clear slate now. It's just a flat roll, right?
That is correct. Yep.
All right, let's see. I need. All right. It's a 7.
7. Okay, so on a 7 to 9 on the answer question, on the answer a question roll, that is a your theory is correct, but I will introduce a complication that either basically to the either to your answer, some sort of unwelcome complication to what the answer is, or that pursuing the opportunity will be more dangerous, something along those lines. I think the complication that I am going to bring into play with this is that obviously you are correct. It is a young vampire, and because it is a young vampire, it is not fully in control at the moment. Essentially, it will it will hunt again tonight. It will hunt again. Basically, it will be out hunting every night until it is brought to heel. So that is something you'll have to be contending with as the night goes on. But that's it. So yeah, because it is a young vampire, you've now unlocked the question. I mentioned already, but I'll go over it again. If it's young, what was the child's home life like before they were turned? And that will allow you to resolve it by luring it into a scene reminiscent of its home life, and then either destroying it or making arrangements for it to safely feed on a regular basis. Complexity of 4, so that's the question you'll need to answer to actually be able to resolve this threat. So now that we've done that, I'm just going to quickly go around and see if our answer to that question has changed anyone's plans for the day, if there's anything else I want to look at. So I'll go around in reverse order this time. So Professor, are you still interested in snooping around Madam Sorokin, or is there anything else you wanted to get up to potentially?
I think I'll stick with that.
Yeah, awesome. And Priyanka, how about yourself?
I would be happy to have either a vulnerable scene or, well, I'm going to try to do both, actually. I would like to visit a church in the area, ostensibly to go and pray, but also to ask one of the sisters if there have been any, mysterious child disappearances lately.
Yeah, sure thing. That sounds good. And yeah, no, you'll absolutely have to get up to both of those things. That's fine. And Fujisawa, are you still happy to kind of be shadowing Priyanka?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, cool, perfect. And Lady Camilla, I presume you're still going ahead with your vulnerable scene with Priyanka, and then potentially visiting Madam Sorokin, or do you wish to? Yeah, no, that's cool, awesome. So with that said, I think we will kick off with that vulnerable scene, as that probably makes most sense to do while everyone's still around at Hargrave House. So again, I'll just quickly, because it's our first time using this particular move, so I'll go over it briefly. So yeah, the vulnerable move. When you have an intimate moment with another hunter while one of you is engaged in your vice, you may clear an appropriate condition. If it's your vice, you can also either stumble on a clue. That means that you get to say what that clue is. You get to tell it to me. I mean, it can be for any of your active threats. The clue can't conclusively answer a question by itself, but otherwise it can be, on the same sort of line as the regular clues that I hand out. Or alternatively, you can invite the other hunter to ask you about your past. You must answer that question truthfully, but not necessarily completely. So those are the options for the vulnerable move. But yeah, Lady Camilla, if you'd like to frame up how you think this scene unfolding, or if you want to check in with Priyanka, how you think the scene unfolds and what's going on.
Would it be possible to have a break before we do the scene?
Oh yes, sorry, I hadn't had my eye on the time. No, we can absolutely take a quick break. Yeah, if we say come back at 10 past and pick things up then.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. I'll see you all in a few minutes. So yeah, now that we're back, Lady Camilla, again, I will still ask you if you would like to kick us off with your vulnerable scene.
So I'm imagining Lady Camilla and Priyanka in the salon at Hargrave House, and maybe it's early afternoon, and they haven't gone off to their other day activities, and they're discussing the the threat of the Limehouse lurker. And so I think Lady Camilla says, "So I'm curious, Priyanka, what do you make then of this vampire, child vampire, newly born, ravenous, killing every evening? How does it strike you?"
Priyanka is probably just shuffling their tarot cards and what would be staring off into the distance if they were not wearing their blindfold, and says along the lines of, "To be truthful, I find it quite sad. What must it be like to be bereft in the world with no one to guide you or to show you how to live in this strange body that you never asked for and never wanted, with all of its strange and inhuman desires? I would be absolutely terrified if I were that child."
Mayhap, perhaps you're correct. Then again, parents are not always such a great boon. We pretend that we love and protect our children, that we would do anything to keep them safe, but the greatest dangers to them, in my experience, come not from the outside world, but from within ourselves. More often than not, they simply become the receptacles of our deepest wounds and our most bitter regrets. We pass dark legacies on across generations and are helpless to forestall the propagation of our own misery. Maybe this child is best off on her own.
That sounds like you've been very vulnerable. So you very much have invited, I just want to clarify for the move part, sounds like you are inviting a question about your past.
You could, but before that happens, the butler comes in and interrupts them and says to Lady Camilla, or to both of you actually, but to Lady Camilla, he says, "Milady, a gentleman here to see you, a Mr. Hughes." And Camilla looks over at the grandfather clock and says, "Early. Escort him downstairs and tell him I'll be with him in due course." And as the butler goes to leave, she says, "No, wait." And she glances at Priyanka. "On second thought, bring him here first." And the butler returned with a young man, Mr. Hughes. Here's what he looks like. He's got disheveled dark hair and kind of a full sensual mouth, wide-eyed, and a rough appearance. His cap is in his hand. He's clearly uncomfortable within the opulence of Hargrave House. And Lady Camilla says, "Welcome, Mr. Hughes." And again, she glances over to Priyanka, but then she stands herself and walks over to him, circling him once with an appraising look as he stands. And he's staring quietly, almost as if he's looking at some imaginary point on the far wall. "You look well, but..." And she wrinkles her nose just a little bit. And then Lady Camilla brings her bare hand up towards his face, and she extends 2 fingers as she touches his lips. And Mr. Hughes's lips part slightly, and she slowly inserts them into his mouth. And as she probes about, his jaw opens more widely, and then she adds her thumb and extracts a ball of wet tobacco leaf from within his cheek. And she examines it in her palm with a disappointed expression as brown spittle drips down her wrist. "What have I told you about this?" he says. "That it'll be the death of me, milady." And after a moment, she stuffs the wet mass into the breast pocket of his waistcoat. "We'll discuss this later. Now go downstairs and prepare yourself for me. And as he turns to comply, she says, oh, and Nicholas, be thorough this time. And he blushes slightly and follows the butler out of the salon. And she draws her handkerchief and wipes her hand absently and sits down. Now, dear, she says to Priyanka, I believe you take your tea black. Is that correct? She goes to pour the tea.
Priyanka is once again flipping tarot cards and turns one over, which is revealed by the camera. It is, you can see it in the chat. It's the devil. And muses to themselves, Lady Camilla, I truly wonder what interesting legacies you've inherited from your parents.
It's lovely to wonder such things, Lady Priyanka. But I'm sure your tarot cards tell you more than I could ever report, seeing as they do beneath the surface of words to what lies hidden beneath. What do they tell you now? As she looks at can she see the tarot card?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, as she looks at the tarot card, she kind of puts her hand out to examine it a bit.
Priyanka blushes. A small crimson hue just below the folds of the white blindfold, and simply says, one would do well to unshackle themselves from the bondages their parents may wreak upon them. That is, after all, what you wished for that child, is it not?
Indeed. You've listened to me well, Priyanka. And she looks off into the distance and says no more. Now, if the vulnerable move resolve, there's no roll on the vulnerable move.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, no, that's correct. So the vulnerable move is, there's no roll involved. So yeah, as I said, when we resolve this move, if you can clear an appropriate condition if either of you have one. And I think it probably is fair to clear marked by the lurker in this particular instance, because you did talk about how the lurker was kind of driven by bloodlust and the like, so it's likely it's not going to have any more ire directed at you than just people in general, so make of that what you will.
I have another little twist on that as well. I think the mark of the lurker is like a pheromone, like a trail pheromone, to mark prey, and happens instinctually. But I think whatever Lady Camilla is up to with Mr. Hughes later involves some plant extracts that she uses to facilitate her ministrations of Mr. Hughes, and I think those got in the way of a pheromone marker.
That's cool. That's cool. I like it.
All right.
But yes, then you get the chance to either, because it's your vice, you get the chance to either stumble upon a clue, and you can tell us what that is, or you can invite Priyanka to ask a question about your past.
All right, I think it makes sense what you were doing, Daryl, that Camilla won't avoid the question. Is that the question that you want to ask, though, about her parents? Something different if you want. Maybe Camilla avoids that question, or as much as she did, and then you ask another.
Yeah, so I think that probably then the Priyanka just is continuing to flip through the tarot cards and draws another card, and it is revealed as the chariot. And they ask you, Lady Camilla, when was the first time you felt truly in control of a situation?
Honestly, it may sound perverse to you, Priyanka, but it was after the death of my husband. I had lived so long in his shadow. All my accomplishments attributed to him. No power or control myself. No influence, unless it was behind the throne, as you might say. But after he died, I felt free. Like I could take control of my life and make it what I wanted it to be. My husband was not a particularly ambitious or intelligent man. I had other desires. And once he was at rest, let's say, I could pursue them more fully myself. That's my answer.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm going to just turn to you briefly, Fujisawa, and ask what's your reaction to this this scene as it unfolds? As I imagine you're probably in the background somewhere.
Yeah, I think we got a shot of Fujisawa making eye contact with the butler who had brought in Mr. Hughes and introduced him. And they share this look, a sort of language of raised eyebrows and like furtive mouthing of words. And Fujisawa kind of says to him, "Another gentleman caller?" And the butler sort of looks resigned and gives a curt nod. They're clearly very adept at sort of this communication without the other members of Hargrave House seeing.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so I think in that case, Professor, we will turn over to you, and you said you were going to try and observe Madam Sorokin from afar, as it were. So the you will already have been able to find out that Madam Sorokin has a home in the East End of London, in Camberwell. It's a fairly nondescript house, just a sort of terrace house, not the most rundown or the biggest house on the street sort of thing. Just fairly unassuming, all told. I think just to give the brief description of kind of what you just see from the outside at first, you will see during the time you're watching the house, you'll see a slightly older lady dressed in just a simple black dress, sort of steel grey hair, who kind of heads out and comes back with some groceries and the like. This, though you won't know it yet, this is Elsie Tanner, who is Madam Sorokin's assistant. And so as the day kind of goes on, you will see kind of a few people come to call at the house, mostly local women in particular. Will kind of call in, stay for a little while, leave again. And you can see their comings and goings sort of from the through the front door of the house. But I'm going to ask, what would you like to do to kind of see if to kind of get more of an idea of what's going on here?
Well, I mean, my first thought is if she went anywhere, I'd follow her. But I guess I'm getting the impression that she conducts her business out of her home.
That's right. Yeah, this definitely seems to be sort of doubling up as a place of business. I mean, she may well leave at some point, but yes, certainly as you start watching her, she's definitely she's definitely kind of. You can definitely tell that she seems to be working out of her house. There definitely seem to be people coming and calling on her there.
Well, I mean, if any of the people coming seem interesting, or yeah, I might go ahead and pivot to following them and then approaching them once they're away from the house.
Yeah,
just see what they have to say about her.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. So I'm going to ask you to make the information move here, and I feel like I think I'm probably going to say this will be. I think if you're just kind of like still mostly standing and watching and figuring things out, I'm probably going to go with composure on this one, just for your kind of general presence of mind and the like.
Mm-hmm. It's a 9.
A 9. Okay, so yeah, on a 7 to 9 there, I will give you a clue, but there will be some sort of complication either with the situation or with the clue itself. So I think, yeah, I think you kind of flag down one. It's probably one of the visitors here. Who I think that the reason that this person stands out is because they are a young man, and so most of the people that have been coming have been women tending towards the slightly older ladies, though not exclusively. This is it's probably sort of around lunchtime that this takes place, and the young man is dressed. You can tell sort of from the way he's dressed, he probably works in a shop or something like that. He's got that kind of quite smart, but obviously not like a business suit or anything like that, but just kind of quite smart clothes that he's wearing. He's got kind curly blonde hair, sort of Cupid's bow lips. He's got that kind of cherubic look to him. But as you kind of approach him, he kind of gives you a very hard stare, and kind of you can see him eyeing you up and trying to kind of figure out what your angle is as you approach him. He says, yes, is there something I can do for you, sir?
I hope so. Am I correct that you were visiting Madam Sorokin?
I was, yes. And what's it to you?
She was recommended to me, but I'm skeptical of such things. Is she helpful to you?
You could say that, he says, and kind of gives a very kind of knowing smile. But you see, unconsciously, he pushes down an envelope into one of his pockets, and there is clearly a moderate sum of money inside it that he kind of pushes just down a bit further into his coat pocket, and that is the clue that you will be getting here. Is a bundle of pound notes in an unmarked envelope. I came here with a friend the other day, and it was a most entertaining way to spend some time, whether or not it's truly, whether or not she can truly see beyond the veil. Well, let's be honest, it hardly seems very likely, does it? But she's certainly entertaining and insightful, I suppose you could say.
I suppose often that's enough.
Exactly, that's what I think. And don't let me put you off. Of course, I'm hardly one to interfere with someone else's business. And I think he will say, sorry, sir, you'll forgive me for being impertinent. My name is James Hitchman, and who might you be? He'll offer you his hand.
I'll shake his hand. Alois Cockburn.
Well, a pleasure to meet you, sir. Perhaps we will meet again if you're a customary visitor to Madam Sorokin, and he'll kind of cock his head and say, or I work at the and he'll say he'll kind of name a kind of clothing store somewhere up further west in one of the more fashionable areas, and say if ever you're in the need of some more of some other clothes or anything else, and he'll give you a smile.
Yes, well, I'll certainly keep you in mind.
Lots of people do, sir. Lots of people do.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I recognize his name, and I know he's I suppose some members of the society, my secret society, I know go to him and are clothed by him, and I'm going to go ahead and keep that clue to myself for now. That's part of my cover-up move.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, excellent. Yes, he's definitely. In fact, you may even recognize his. So yeah, you have several. You're in the conclave. You may even recognize. You may actually recognize his face from like a painting you've seen. He's probably modeled for somebody at some point. And
what was the name again? I don't.
His name was James Hitchman, and I will write him down on the threat sheet. And yes. Awesome. Thank you very much. So yeah, I think with that said, we will leave that there for the moment, and we will move over to, I think, yeah, Priyanka and Fujisawa, and your visit to the the church, and your inquiries there.
Yeah. So before seeking out and talking to one of the sisters, of course, Priyanka has dragged Fujisawa into one of the pews, and they're sitting quietly towards the back of the chapel. It's early afternoon, so there's not really anyone else in the chapel, only the two of us. And Priyanka is sitting quietly, reciting psalms under her breath, and holding Fujisawa's hand. And so as the afternoon sun streams through the stained glass, and the dust motes can be seen floating through the air, Fujisawa can hear Priyanka's psalms go quiet and low. And as she continues to work through them, her murmuring gets slightly faster, and the fingers that are holding Fujisawa's hand start to flutter a bit more. And in the quiet of the church, the only thing that you can hear is the small tis 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 of the words that are faster and faster tumbling out of Priyanka's lips. In the other hand that's not holding Fujisawa's hand, she's clutching a little black book that's even the sides of the pages are blackened, and it seems like it would be a book of psalmody, but it's well leafed and something that she's clung onto for a very long time. And as she works her way towards the end of the psalm, her whispering gets more and more frantic, and Fujisawa can also feel slight tremors running up and down her spine. And as she finally says the final verse, there's an almost climactic feeling around the way that she finishes the verse, and then slumps into the pew. And then the fingers slowly worm their way out of Fujisawa's hand. And then suddenly she's sitting upright again.
I think that as Fujisawa felt the tremors sort of traveling up and down her spine, she had kind of leaned into them, perhaps leaned into Priyanka's body. And I think there's a sort of simultaneity to this like swell, this sort of climactic moment, and they both sort of collapse into the pew together.
A question that I would have then is, what is the scent that Fujisawa picks up off of Priyanka in this moment?
The scent. I think there's a sort of sweetness or a spiciness to it even, perhaps. It's a scent of incense, but like right underneath that, there's like the coppery notes of blood. It's a scent that Fujisawa has come to find very comforting, although it unnerved her at first.
And then since this was my vulnerable move and it is my vice that we have been indulging in, I would like to invite the other hunter to ask about my past.
I think that, yeah, as we see the light kind of dancing through the stained glass, Fujisawa takes in the profile of Priyanka's face and gazing at their soft skin, their lips. And in this voice that, like, it sounds like she's been wondering about this for a long time. She says, "Miss Balakwa, if you don't mind my asking, I wonder when religion became such a large part of your life. I wouldn't have guessed before getting to know you better that you would subscribe to such," she sort of gestures around at the chapel, "mainstream beliefs."
When I was a young child, and when I was being raised in India, it was an interesting time. I spent a lot of time with my mother's family, and we followed the precepts of our faith, the faith of our homeland. And then when I spent time with my uncle, he shared the faith of his homeland. And I find there to be all sorts of interesting, intricate idiosyncrasies between all of them. I wonder about all of the mysteries that he and his brother and my father brought to my mother. And I wonder about the ways that they pushed and pulled on each other. And I spent an awful lot of time in India learning about that legacy. So now that I'm here, I figured I would indulge in the legacy of my father's people.
I can understand that, a desire to connect with yourself through the past.
My uncle was a very interesting man. He was a priest, and I learned quite a bit from him. Such as where the best place to find a Mother Superior would be at this time of afternoon. And at this point, there's like the briefest of like taps on your wrist to let you know that we won't be saying any more about it. And raises from, stands from the pew and works their way back through the aisle and towards the back of the chapel.
Fujisawa, with her always impeccable posture, follows a few paces behind.
So at this point, we have definitely kind of, slipped our way from the chapel into the main rectory, and we're seeking out where we'll most likely to find the Mother Superior.
Yeah, absolutely. You will find her without too much trouble. Yeah, she is an older woman, quite thin, quite drawn, obviously in full habit, she will say, ladies, and she'll kind of give a short nod of kind of respect. Is there anything I may do for you?
And then Priyanka comes forward, and of course it's still, like in their very strange kind of, get up with the blindfold and everything, and reaches out a hand towards the Mother Superior, but is, very much acting as if we can't see where she is. Says, yes.
And yeah, she will kind of take your hand. You take your hand in both of her hands to sort of, well, not steady you, but yeah, to kind of guide you to where she is.
And so in like the softest voice I can muster, I say, sister, I come with what may to you be a strange request, but one which I have been very moved in my prayers to seek you out for. I received an instruction last night as I was preparing for sleep that I absolutely must come and aid the mothers of this community. I'm seeking out ways that I might help someone who has lost a child, or someone who has faced some sort of hardship in their life. You see, I am unmarried, but I am very invested in the cause of motherhood, and I want to help anyone that I can, any way that I can. I knew that the best way to make such a connection would be to go to the heart of the community and to understand, to find the one person who would know best who I could help and who I was meant to help. Do you understand, sister?
Of course, my dear. I understand all too well. And she will nod. And I think at this point, I'm going to ask you to make the information move with presence, I think, here.
So my presence is a +2. That's a 12.
12, very nice. So I think that she will sigh and say, our church here is not a large one. We do not have the facilities of some other places. The desperate and needy of this district, of this borough, tend to end up at the Limehouse School. And you can see kind of almost a wince as she says the name. If it is someone in need, someone with who's lost a child, or a child who has lost a parent, or any combination you might imagine, they will probably be found at the Limehouse School. And then there's almost that moment where she sort of stops talking, but then she kind of squeezes your hand between hers again and says, I should not speak ill of those who are committed to caring for the poor and the desperate of this city, but I have heard of great cruelty meted out on those who come into the care of the Limehouse School by those who run things there. It is a sad state of affairs, but it would not be right of me to mislead you about the nature of the place, child. And the clue that you have received there is stories of a victim behaving unkindly towards children. Specifically, you know that Charla Bell was an employee of the Limehouse School.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, no, carry on.
Yeah, I think that at that point, Priyanka clutches the Mother Superior's hands even more tightly, and like lets a small tremble go through her fingers as she leans in and says, "Yes, thank you. That is exactly what I was meant to find. That I know that our Lord has put me here to help these children, and through you, Mother, I will be able to provide the assistance. I thank you for your time. I truly appreciate the help that you have been." And then Priyanka raises up from the seat that we've been sitting at, and then reaches towards Fujisawa, as if asking for the guidance out of the room.
Yeah, I think Fujisawa during this conversation has been helping sell the fantasy of Priyanka needing her aid, and will sort of gingerly take Ms. Balakwa's arm and lead her out. And I think once they're out of earshot of the Mother Superior, she'll lean in and say, "Ms. Balakwa, you are an excellent actress."
Priyanka lets the slightest smile cross their lips before once again resuming a mask of dignity and says, "All in the service of a greater good, my dear."
And as you step out onto the street from the church, you'll hear just kind of a bird call above, and you'll notice just for a moment, sort of circling around overhead, a hunting falcon just seems to be kind of circling over the area, and after a little while, after you notice it, and after a couple more circles, it flies off again further into the city. But it does stand out as it's not a common sort of bird to see in the city. And that is your mastermind clue there. I've added that to the sheet. Awesome. Yeah, perfect. So I think I think we'll quickly have a quick scene. I think Lady Camilla, as you are arriving at Madam Sorokin's, I think this is just a short while after James has left, and I think, certainly, I think, Alois, you will notice Lady Camilla arriving. I will leave it to your discretion as to whether you want to make your presence known to her or not.
So as Lady Camilla steps down from her handsome cab and she looks across the street, does she see you, Alois? Or does she not?
Sure.
So she just makes eye contact with you, but doesn't make any other acknowledgement, knowing that you are casing the joint and not wanting to blow any cover that you might have. And she continues on up the steps into the to the door of the the townhouse or the brownstone.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah. As you knock at the door, the lady we saw earlier, as I said, probably well, she in fact may not even be quite as may not be quite as old as Lady Camilla, but definitely in the same sort of ballpark. She's just, like I said, dressed simply in a black dress, has sort of steel grey hair, and as you kind of arrive, she kind of looks over you, and you can kind of tell that she's sort of takes in details, but he's got quite calculating eyes. She sort of you can see her obviously immediately clock that you are somebody of wealth and distinction, and she will give a short and not showy curtsy as she says, "Good afternoon, milady. My name is Miss Tanner. I am Madam Sorokin's assistant. I take it you are here for a reading with Madam Sorokin."
Yes, of course, I am. I hope Madam Sorokin has time for me today. And Lady Camilla she's in day clothes, but she's definitely tried to dress up a little bit to express her wealth without being extravagant.
Yeah.
She begins to step through the doorway without Mrs. Tanner actually inviting her.
Yeah, and she will take a step back to let you in and say, "Of course, my lady, and we can find we can certainly find some time for you to visit with Madam Sorokin." And you will kind of she will go over to and it's like I said, it's just a kind of fairly standard house. You come into a little hallway, and she will there is kind of a there's been a very kind of modest, like there's a little desk set up inside, but she'll just go over to a kind of a door off the hallway and kind of knock on it and say, "Madam Sorokin, a visitor here to see you." And you will see Elsie sort of come back over and say, "Please, my lady," as she sort of opens the door. And you will just kind of get, as she sort of step back and open the door for you, you will also just see her kind of quickly sidle over to the desk and just like strike a line through a something in the appointment book.
Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. So cool. Welcome back.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Lady Camilla steps into where I'm assuming Madam Sorokin is. This is her.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, this is Madam Sorokin's parlor. So it's kind of a again, it's a sort of, it's obviously the front parlor of a house. You know, it's very sort of fussily decorated with a lot of kind of Eastern European-ish motifs, and like, you know, and like hanging around. There's a big table with several chairs around it. That kind of, it's almost like the table itself is almost too big for the room it's in. It's not to the point that like you're like right pressed up against the walls, but it's obviously like, you wouldn't furnish it with a table this large if you were just kind of decorating this room for practicality. And you will see a young lady is sat in a table at one side of the table. She is likewise dressed in sort of very bright, colourful, patterned clothing, again of slightly indistinct origin. She's thin. She looks quite young, and as she looks at you, her eyes are. She's got like bright blue eyes that have a very sort of captivating, hypnotic look to them. As without saying anything, she'll just kind of gesture at one of the chairs opposite her. And we will do a quick paint the scene question here. So, again, we'll go around it. Feel free to jump in and answer this when you think of something. But the question for this is, what here is obviously cheap set dressing, and what hints at a true connection to the occult?
And we're just going popcorn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you think of something, jump in.
So there is a very thin lace tablecloth over the table, the kind of thing that maybe looked good like the first week that it was purchased, but has since become rather threadbare. But through that threadbare cloth, someone with eagle eyes would be able to intuit that there are some sort of strange markings chalked onto the table underneath the cloth.
Awesome. I like it.
There are a number of small mirrors on the walls, around on all four walls, actually. And as Lady Camilla steps into the room, she notices that thing that she notices at Hargrave House that always irritates her, which is the little black thing scurrying in the mirror worlds. And that gives her a sense that there's something going on here.
Awesome.
I think that somewhere prominently displayed is like this very ornate kind of golden chalice. It looks exactly like the chalice depicted as the cup suit of the Rider-Waite tarot deck. It's like kind of meant to be this archetypical symbol that anyone with like a passing knowledge of the occult would recognize. But it really has no value. It's gold plated. It's completely cheap. But I think as the camera pans up, we can see that there's also a chart, like a star chart, sort of faintly drawn onto the ceiling. And someone who visits frequently and has a keen eye would notice that the stars shift nightly with the actual cosmos.
I think that there are particularly heavy blackout curtains for all that can be drawn over all the windows so that the room can be kept completely dark. Don't really know. I mean, is that so that she can do things in the complete darkness and not be observed? Or is that because you know, the actual rituals require a complete darkness to work.
Awesome, awesome. I like it. Thank you very much. And yeah, as I mentioned, there is this large mirror on the wall behind her as well. This definitely seems out of place. It is it has a gold frame, or at the very least a gilt frame. But the glass in it, if it well, the reflective surface of the mirror it's odd because it's quite cloudy. It's not clear. It's not reflecting anywhere near as much as the other mirrors in this place. But it has an almost kind of like I said, it's almost like it's a sort of a dark mirror. The reflective surface is sort of dark rather than being bright, kind of thing. And the reflections in it, it has a sort of an iridescent sheen when you look into it. So it does look quite unusual, to say the least. And I think we'll take another quick break there. We'll come back at 1:15. We'll go over this scene quickly, and then we'll jump into the night phase after that. So I will see you all back in a few minutes. So yes, Lady Camilla, the young lady will motion for you to take a seat.
Lady Camilla sweeps down into the seat.
And she will kind of look up at you and say, "You have traveled far to be here tonight. Today, my lady. Not perhaps today, but the journey that led you to this point has been a long one, and not one without loss, but also one with much success, I think."
Yes, I cannot say that that's not true, Madam Sorokin. I have come to you for a specific reason, however. Lady Camilla does not like subterfuge.
Of course, it is to provide truth that I have been granted my gifts, my lady.
That's correct. My associates and I could have use for a woman of your talents, if your talents prove to be true. We are currently looking into a series of murders in Limehouse. Grisly murders, grisly affairs. And I thought it might be efficient to come to a medium to see if you can help us in any way solve the mystery or find the culprit in these murders. Lady Camilla's going straight. She's not bullshitting.
Awesome. And she will nod and say, "Of course, that is an interesting request. Much stranger than most requests I receive, but then you do not seem like a usual lady, if I do not wish to cause offense, of course."
No offense taken. I am highly unusual.
And I think that she will reach for a deck of tarot cards and hand them to you and say, "Please cut the cards for me.
Lady Camilla cuts the deck 3 times to the left. She's no novice at tarot card readings. Briskly and without thought.
Excellent. And I'm going to ask you to make me the information move with sensitivity, please.
Oh, no. I am not very sensitive. All right. This might go poorly. Where is that? All right, so I'm rolling at a -1.
Yeah, that's cool.
Ooh. So that's a 5.
Mm. And I think and you'll have to forgive me, I am not very up on tarot. So, but she will turn over some cards that she looks at, and you can see just for a moment there is a flicker of genuine concern in her eyes. She quickly covers it back up again into her professional mask, but you catch that that moment of concern. And she says, I must insist, my lady, whatever course of action you had planned for this night, you must not go ahead with it. Your life is surely in peril. And you can take the condition doom foretold.
Doom foretold. Now, I do have the possibility of...
You can, if you wish, spend a mask to upgrade that into a 7 to 9.
Or I could be doomed. Assuming she is what she says she is. I will, let's see, let me just quickly look at my masks. Oh, is there a special mask for this one?
There is actually, in fact, I forgot to mention that. There is, for this one, the Mask of the Mirror is available.
What the hell?
And you could, if you wish, to also mark the Mask of the Sun on this one, as you're specifically asking questions about the Limehouse lurker as well.
Oh, because I am.
So
asking.
yeah.
She's very efficient, so I'm sorry about that. She was 2 birds in 1 stone.
Yeah.
Why don't I do the Mask of the Sun then?
Sure thing.
And yeah, I don't want to die tonight.
So I am going to so for the Mask of the Sun, when Mask of the Sun is marked, each hunter must narrate a dream they once had of primordial earth, back in time across the ancient seas, back in time when the spirits walked, when the sun was new and the old gods held court. So I'll check in with people once we get around to the evening phase, or potentially the dawn phase if people don't have it for the evening phase. But yeah, if you just want to sort of be mulling that over, a dream you once had of primordial earth. We'll get there eventually. On a 7 to 9. I think I'm actually I'm still going to go with the same condition. She is still going to prophesize your doom. However, she is also going to provide you some useful information while she does so. And I think that she will I think she will say, but I know my words will not be enough to dissuade a woman of your strength of will. You will learn more when you find the sons of another world. They will lead you to the one who holds the secrets you keep. So with that cryptic note, the clue is a painted mural depicting the sons of another world.
Suns like suns in the sky kind of suns.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And I think with that, oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I thank you for your warning and your help, however cryptic it might be. My experience with these things is such prophecies come to make sense at the moment you need them to. So I will await that moment. Thank you for your time, Madam Sorokin.
That is my pleasure and my burden, Lady Camilla.
Perhaps we will do business again someday soon, assuming I survive the evening.
If you survive this evening, I have no doubt we will meet once more.
Good day to you, Madam Sorokin.
Awesome. So, with that, we will move on to the evening phase. Actually, no, sorry. That I tell a lie. Before we do that, I just want to check in with Alois. While Lady Camilla is inside with Madam Sorokin, is there anything that you want to be doing?
I mean, not really anything too different. I mean, I maybe am a bit closer to the house just on the off chance that something goes wrong inside, that I close enough to at least hear if things go horribly.
Sure thing. No, that's fine. No, then in which case we will move on into the evening phase. So yeah, I just didn't want to kind of leave you dangling there. If there was anything you wanted to get up to while that was going on. Awesome. So for the evening phase, we will. If I worked up. Sorry, the dusk phase, I should say. I always get those two confused. Right. So we will resolve any playbook moves or custom moves that are resolved during the dusk phase. I don't think we currently have anyone who has any ones that tick off at the dusk phase, but if I'm wrong, do shout out. we'll have a paint scene question, and I think the paint scene question that we will go for today, well, the room of the Hargrave House that we'll go for today. I think we will go for the music room. A former hunter in residence once used this room to wrangle a spirit using the power of music. There are still subtle signs of the struggle in this room. What are they? So as ever, just jump in when you have an answer that you want to give.
I think that the door to the music room creaks when it moves, and this creak sounds like nothing more than a soprano holding a long operatic note.
Nice, nice.
In one of the corners, there is a tall standing harp that is a bit, a bit burnished, a bit tarnished, but the strings all look very, very new. And if one were to cast their eyes not at the harp itself, but at the hardwood wall behind the harp, they would see the traces of perfectly spaced gouges in the wood, as if the old strings had all snapped in unison and lashed out against the wall.
And I think there, on the same note, there is a case on the far end of the room, a glass case with what appears to be the remains of a Stradivarius that is basically shattered. But someone prized it so much, valued it so much that they couldn't throw it away.
On a table, there's a small metal music box, and the wood of the table beneath it in the shape of the music box is scorched.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. So next, we're going to go around and see what people feel like getting up to this evening in the night phase. I will. It won't be relevant today because we're not quite at the point of resolving a threat yet. But when we are, the night phase is the only phase that threats can be resolved in. They can't be resolved during the day phase unless there are a couple of like very specific exceptions. But in general, it has to be during the night phase. However, that's not probably going to be a concern tonight, as I think it's unlikely we're going to get a resolution before an answer to a question before the end of the night phase tonight. So I'm going to go. I'll go back in reverse order again this time. Alois, what would you like to get up to this evening?
I wonder if there's what was the name of the place that the nun was running with the
Oh, the Limehouse School,
Limehouse School,
which is a
I
workhouse
think-
in Limehouse, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I want to break in there, sneak in there, and just rifle through the records.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. And Fujisawa, how about yourself? No, sorry, not Fujisawa. I'm going the wrong. Priyanka first. Sorry.
Yeah, so Priyanka's also going to go break into the schoolhouse. So
Awesome. We'll assume, I think, probably that you will be. We'll check in again in a second if people want to do something different, but presumably you will be cooperating, or at least aware of each other's presence when doing that. But yeah, that's awesome. And Fujisawa.
Am I correct in thinking that oh gosh, what's her name? The medium, Madam Sorokin, is holding a seance soon, possibly tonight?
Soon, possibly tonight. We can kind of we can play about with the timing of that depending on what you want to get up to. But yeah, that's
Yeah, I think Fujisawa wants to attend the seance.
Sure, that sounds cool. And Lady Camilla.
Quick question. Did we find a clue on the St. Petersburg mirror? I can't remember.
I think the only one you've found so far is one that Alois is holding back because it might implicate his society.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so no clues on that one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sure. Why don't I attend? Does it make sense to attend the seance with Fujisawa? Probably, just for the efficiency of having 2 and 2. I think. Yeah.
Sure.
Let's
No,
do
that makes sense. That is cool. So yeah, I will just I'll just kind of go back around again to check in that everyone's cool with plans. Alois, are you still cool with going ahead and raiding the schoolhouse, as it were? Awesome. And yeah, Priyanka, same. Yeah, awesome. And yeah, Fujisawa, again, I presume you're cool going to the seance with Lady Camilla.
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, and yeah, likewise, Lady Camilla. That's yeah, awesome. So that's cool. That will be what we're up to this evening. I will also just quickly, I'll mention I will kind of run now straight through until kind of past. If at any point you do need to take a quick break, obviously feel free to do so. Don't wait around, as it were. I will sort of try and keep rolling on just to get us wrapped up. And yeah, the last thing that we know what we're all doing is we will introduce the unseen. So I think the unseen that we are going for tonight is going to be a drink at the Four Magpies. So in the Carrot Keeper, this is in the rightmost tab column the rightmost column, column I and J, down at the very bottom of that column. So the first one is a paint the scene for everyone. The second prompt I'm going to give to L. The third prompt I will give to Daryl, and the fourth prompt to Brian. So again, just as a quick reminder on these, we'll do these quick descriptive scenes based on the prompts. If you can work in a detail that's been introduced in one of the unseen prompts into the fiction of the stories you're telling, or vice versa, if you're able to make a callback in your unseen to something that's happened in the night phase, that will count as an echo in the night, and you'll get to mark a point of XP at the dawn phase. So that's the payoff, as it were, for that. However, A Drink at the Four Magpies. The Four Magpies is a pub popular with working class gay men, run by the butch landlady Polly O'Donnell. While it seems like any other cramped, rowdy, spit and sawdust pub, it is an oasis of relative safety in a dangerous city. Polly does what she can to protect her boys. There are a few small rooms available upstairs, and some of the lads make a bit of extra coin entertaining wealthier guests. So we are going to start off with a paint the scene question for everyone, which we'll do now, which is to describe a moment we see of men sharing a moment of intimacy that would be unwise to do elsewhere. And again, as ever, just feel free to jump in whatever order.
I think there's someone playing an accordion at this pub. I assume accordions were around in the Victorian times. I think they were, or at least harmoniums
so,
or something, some version of them. That's the music I hear, and I just see maybe 2 or 3 couples of men dancing close and slow to the music, and they're quiet. It's quiet. I mean, other than the music playing, they are not speaking. And I also see other patrons of the bar or of the pub looking upon the dancers wistfully.
Awesome. Thank you.
Near the door that swings into the kitchen, there are 2 men who are what could pass for a more intimate conversation if one did not look too closely, but on closer examination, hands are on hips and on the smalls of backs, and there is no space between them. And what looks like it could have been a whisper is actually an earlobe caught between 2 lips.
I think at the bar there is there's a man just crying and being comforted by 2 other men standing on either side of him.
And I think in contrast to this man crying, on the other side of the bar, we see 2 men engaged in a very lively conversation. I think one of them is in drag with these like kind of brunette curls piled on top of his head and like these red circles of rouge and bright red lipstick. And as they laugh together, the other man leans forward toward his companion and wipes just a little fleck of errant red lipstick off of his cheek.
Nice. Thank you. So, I think we will start at the Limehouse School. It is a sorry, bear with me 1 second. Yes, it's obviously a kind of big institutional looking building. There are there's like a walled courtyard around it, though it does just open up onto the street at the front. It's not like a fortified location, as it were. So there is a paint the scene question here that I will ask now. It's probably more something that will be noticed as you head inside. But yeah, workhouses like this are where poor children are sent to be managed until they're old enough to be turned out. What signs of deprivation do you see in this place?
there's the yard is basically just dirt and gravel. And there's like the barest like attempt at some sort of playground equipment. But the thing that sticks out like a sore thumb is a seesaw where like one of the planks of wood that was meant to be a seat has just been completely broken off. And so it's just a seat on one end and then a bare pole on the other.
I think we see a young boy crying, having skinned his knee, but there's no like adult or caretaker that comes to see after him. It's the other children who have to comfort him and help him.
And I think we see at the or we experience, I don't know how you do this cinematically, as in the, when we see the kitchen, at the entrance to the kitchen, we smell this foul scent of almost rotting food, as if whatever's being quote unquote cooked here would be nearly unpalatable. And maybe as we pass through the door into the kitchen, we see kind of a pot encrusted with something that's unidentifiable.
I think in the room with rows of beds, we see children like struggling to curl up into a ball small enough to actually fit themselves beneath the tiny bit of cloth that they've been given as a blanket.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So yeah, Priyanka, Alois, as you kind of arrive at the workhouse, what do you think is your approach to getting inside? How are you going to go about that?
I mean, start with just a peek in a window to make sure no one's around, and then I'm not assuming the security is going to be super tight, that everything's going to be that locked down. So start just trying doors or windows to see if they'll easily slide open.
Yeah, steering away from like the residential sections of the building and trying to specifically kind of get into the parts that will be more administrative. Also, I'm assuming that the place where Charla Belle died is probably a little bit of a ghost town. So if that entrance happens to be like closer, if that happens to be closer to one of the entrances, it's probably a good way to pursue it.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, I think definitely it's as I said, that there's probably some sort of security measures on the place, but mostly focused on stopping people from getting out rather than getting in. So I think it's going to be a relatively there'll definitely be opportunities for you to get in there. I think yeah, I think well, we'll go with I think Alois first. If you'd like to, I think this will be the night move to get the two of you inside the place. What are you afraid will happen if you fail or lose your nerve while doing this?
I'm afraid, someone inside will hear us and come to investigate.
Sure thing. Yeah, that's. I think it's actually worse than that. I think. I think you will actually. It won't just be people, people inside who spot this, but you will be spotted by a passing policeman who will, apprehend you in your effort to break in. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be a roll with composure, please, Alois.
That is a 5.
Okay, so we'll come back to that in a moment. I think first we will we will drop in. I think with with the arrival of Lady Camila and Fujisawa at the home of Lady Cadwallader. Yeah, I'm going to ask kind of how are you arriving here? And I guess my main question on top of that, just in general, is Fujisawa, are you going to be kind of presenting as like Lady Camilla's servant, or will you be kind of trying to pass yourself off as someone of higher station?
I think I'm presenting myself as a servant of Lady Camilla. Mm-hmm.
Sure thing.
I'm curious whether Lady Camilla is going femme or in her mask look.
She's going femme to this event. So she's got the Bertha neckline, the low one with the shoulder off the shoulders, and the decolletage, and she's wearing a corset, which she normally doesn't wear. And I think her gown is like an emerald green gown, rather striking. And she has her hair up, and yeah, she is looking the part of the high society lady for this event.
Awesome. So you arrive at Cadwallader House. And you excuse me, sorry. You will be kind of aware of some of this already, just from the circles you move in, Lady Camilla. So Lady Clara Cadwallader is quite young. She was married to Lord St. John Cadwallader. He was a brigadier in the Indian Army, though he died recently whilst back here in England. Clara has inherited his fortune. She's obviously at the minute still in mourning for her husband. This kind of limits the social engagements she is able to partake in, but obviously holding a seance is considered perhaps eccentric but acceptable in these circumstances. It is very much the fashionable thing to do at these times, especially given her recent loss. She has a fashionable townhouse in Mayfair. It's expensively but tastefully decorated, and yeah, has very obvious signs of mourning here. As you enter the hallway, as the sort of the footman gets to the door, you'll notice that in sort of the entrance hall and presumably throughout the rest of the house, all of the mirrors and the portraiture in the house has been veiled. And there's another paint the scene question here I'm going to ask, which is, what traces of the late Lord Cadwallader still linger in the house, and how are they being expunged? So again, yeah, feel free to jump in as and when.
I think that there's like an ever-present lingering scent of cigars, sort of that has wormed its way into the curtains and into the leather armchairs. And the lady of the house is attempting to counteract that with scented candles, kind of suffusing the home with the aroma of violets and lavender. Perhaps too much aroma, even.
One of the like at the top of the grand staircase, there is of course one of these giant portraits that is currently like has the cloth over it. But whenever a footman goes by with a candle or anything like that, the thing that someone who is very observant could see is that the wallpaper around it is darker in the shape of a rectangle that signifies that a different portrait hung there, and that it has very recently been changed.
I think there's just a large trunk of men's clothing that's been like put outside the back door, waiting for someone to come and take it away.
And you said in the prompt, David, that there were still traces, even though some things were being taken away, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the traces still is a collection of sabers hung on the wall that were her husband's, that she hasn't been able to bring herself to take down, that they were precious to him.
Thank you very much. So we'll go to our next unseen prompt. So this one is for L. So Curtis Jackson is a young Barrow boy who has heard rumors of the Four Magpies but never visited before. How do we see him make his first nervous steps inside, and how is he drawn in?
I think that we see Curtis kind of muscle his way through the bustling crowd at the Four Magpies. His posture is like a little hunched, sort of shy. We can tell that he doesn't, even though he knows he belongs here, he doesn't quite feel it yet. And he takes a seat at the far end of the bar, away from many of the other patrons. I think we see the couple who were laughing raucously sort of nearby, and we see a moment of Curtis trying to laugh along with their jokes, but I think they're speaking in like Polari, like the gay slang, and he doesn't quite understand it. He's just trying to show that he wants to socialize and they don't really notice. And he's about to give up, I think, and leave the bar, having considered this a failed excursion, when a drink, a flagon of ale, slides down the bar toward him. And he looks up at the center of this drink. It's a handsome, dark-skinned Indian man with the most beautiful emerald green eyes he's ever seen. And Curtis finally smiles.
Lovely, thank you very much. We will revisit the Cadwallader house as you were sort of shown in by the footman, Lady Camila and Fujisawa. There's, again, it's that sort of, there will probably be, you will probably be asked to wait for a moment while the footman goes in to see the lady of the house. But he will return a short while later. You know, you're not left waiting for long. And the footman will sort of, you know, click his heels together and bow and say, please, Lady Camila, do come through. Lady Clara was not expecting your presence this evening, but is of course glad to welcome you here, and we'll kind of lead you inside the sort of the receiving room, the sort of drawing room where the seance is being held. And Fujisawa, I will say to you, you are, if you wish to sort of follow along with Lady Camila, you will absolutely be able to do so. Or if you want to slip off and investigate elsewhere, that's also, that opportunity is also available to you.
Yeah, I think Fujisawa says louder than she would normally, mostly for Lady Camilla's benefit, that she has some specifics to work out with the footmen and the other servants for Lady Camilla's needs during her visit tonight, and we'll kind of slip off to speak with the service staff of the house.
Brilliant, yep.
Lady Camilla smiles as she glances over her shoulder at Fujisawa, knowing that she'll be up to good snooping business.
Excellent. So yes, Lady Camilla, you will be, as I said, led into the drawing room. It's not a big gathering this evening. You will notice, obviously, Madam Sorokin is already here. She will look up and kind of give a nod of the head to you as you come in. She doesn't look surprised to see you here, but
Are
whether
you
that's
surprised psychic?
but yeah, exactly, whether that's because she was actually expecting you here or she's good at covering up is you know, anyone's guess. There will be, as I said, the Lady Clara, who is said quite young. She is not like super young, but she's considered, she's, you know, she was considerably younger than her husband, put it that way. Mm-hmm. You can tell she as she sort of greets you, she's got the obvious sort of bearing and poise of an aristocrat, and she is wearing black crepe and mourning garb, but she looks, you know, she looks very good in it. It's obviously been tailored to make her a very appealing, despite the dour and nature of it. There are two other people here present, both of them men. there is a well-dressed, like immaculately dressed, very debonair, very fashionable looking man. He is smoking a cigarette in a cigarette holder. He has a very neatly tailored beard. And there is a man in a smart naval uniform, looks to be a captain by his insignia. Likewise has that sort of the very sort of square sailor's beard. Though you will notice he sort of has a drink of a glass of port in hand, and as he sort of raises the glass to drink from it, you can see sort of an unmistakable tremor to his hand. And Lady Clara will stand and say, Lady Camilla, thank you for joining us this evening. And she will kind of indicate the two men and say, this is Captain Silas Fairweather of the Royal Navy. And he will kind of likewise stand and you know, take off his hat and like, and actually he won't be wearing a hat inside, but you know, he will stand and bow to you. And this is Count Vasily Orlov of the Russian embassy, and the other well-dressed man will likewise give you a bow. Mm-hmm. And this, of course, is Madam Sorokin, who will be conducting the seance this evening. Please do join the circle, and she'll, you know, indicate the table and say, we of course are not standing on the usual formalities this evening, given the nature of our gathering.
Thank you so much for having me on such short notice. I heard the tale of your husband's passing, and I was moved by it and wanted to be here tonight. I'm so glad you have indulged me.
Thank you, Lady Camilla. It means much to see you. My husband spoke. My husband spoke often of your husband and his exploits, and I am likewise, of course. Well, she won't offer. My feeling was it's been some time, without going into too much detail. It's been some time since your husband's death. I assume it's yeah. But yes, her husband was again almost certainly a contemporary of his.
Oh, that old? Okay.
Well, maybe not quite that, but yeah, you know, may have served under him in his junior days, that kind of thing. It's like, yeah.
So Lady Camilla settles herself then at the table, which I assume is where the seance will take place.
Yes, indeed. You will also notice that the mirror that you saw at the parlor earlier has been brought here as well. It's been sort of set in the center of the table, sort of flat on the table rather than standing upright kind of thing.
Lady Camilla whispers under her breath, "Oh, and I thought all the mirrors would be covered tonight." Only to herself does she say that, though.
And as we see that, I'm just going to check back in quickly with Fujisawa. So yeah, were you planning to actually speak with the servants, or to sneak off entirely?
I think to start with, she is actually speaking with the servants. I think maybe we see her sharing a cigarette behind the house with one of the kitchen maids. And I think she wouldn't normally be smoking in her kimono because the smell lingers in the silk. But everyone here smells like lavender and violets anyway. So.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'll ask you to make the information move with presence, please, and we'll see how that goes.
Sure. That's an 11.
11, excellent. So I think as you're speaking with this this kitchen maid, she will say to you, "Oh, of course, I don't know why we've got to have all this," and she'll kind of wave towards the house. All this medium business going on in the house. Lord knows it was creepy enough as it was. And she'll kind of give a bit of a shudder and say, I found him, Lord Cadwallader, when he passed. It was horrible. I mean, talk of all this.
How did he die, if I may ask?
Well, I tell you, it looked like he'd seen a ghost, miss. It was horrible. It was. He was all just dead in front of the the big mirror in the hallway, all pale, and his face was like he'd been screaming or startled out of his skin. It was horrible. And I will add that clue, which is a body in front of a mirror, skin pale, face contorted.
I think Fujisawa listens to this and says quite matter-of-factly, "That sounds like a rather alarming, confusing way for him to die. I can understand why your mistress would want answers. I don't know if her methods are exactly my own, but grief does strange things to the mind."
Right you are, miss, I suppose. Right you are. It's I tell you though, that one that she's got in there gives me the creeps. She does. And we will come back over to Alois and Priyanka. So I believe as the I think maybe Alois, you're kind of like opening up a sort of a sash window into one of the offices. It will be at that moment that and maybe Priyanka, you're kind of stood on the corner keeping an eye out, but it will be at that moment that a young police constable will round the corner and calls out, "Here, you can't be, what are you doing? Come away from there." And he'll sort of blow on his whistle and start storming towards you, Alois. He will get up to you and sort of grab you by the scruff of your neck, as it were, as you're kind of by the window here. We can carry on with that and see where it winds up, or if you wish, you can spend you can invoke the Janus Mask to up that to a 7 to 9.
I'm tempted to just see where it goes, but I guess I will go ahead and I will use my mask.
Sure thing. Sure thing. So I think we will see a similar scene, except where we will come in is just as you've kind of got in through this window and helped Priyanka through the window after you, is the point when we will see this constable rounding the corner. You hear the you kind of, as you slide the window back into place, he kind of catches the noise, and you can kind of see, just like illuminated by the gas lamp in the street, you can see him kind of looking over at the window with a little bit of suspicion, but he's going to kind of walk around to the front of the building, rather than coming to sort of actually where you are. You suspect that he might be actually, coming in to check that everything's okay at the building, but he hasn't immediately noticed you. So you've got into this office. So Priyanka, Alois, what would you like to do now that you're here?
I think that Priyanka will start to very quickly sift through the paperwork and look through the desk drawers, and if there happens to be like files or anything like that, quickly kind of scan them. Since it's probably dark, as soon as Alois has let me know that the constable is like rounded the corner, I will pull out like a small flint and light a candle that I have brought with me.
Yeah, and if you would like to make the information move, probably with reason here for just doing a kind of search.
So reason, there's a +1 for me. Oh, looks like I need to refresh the page. Hold on. Oof, I got 5.
Yeah, so I think as you light the candle and start looking through the drawers, you will hear a heavy pounding on the door, as the police officer calls out, evening, is there any problem here? I think I saw someone skulking about outside. And you can hear kind of someone, probably, you can probably hear someone like coming down some stairs at the loud knocking.
I mean, I'm happy to use a mask here, unless we want to cut back to that.
Sure. We can use a mask. We'll come back to it in a minute, but yeah, we'll just do a quick revisit to the 4 magpies. This will be Darold. So a well-dressed toff enters the pub, clearly cruising for trade. Which eager lads compete, good-naturedly or otherwise, for his attention, and who just scoffs at him?
So this very finely dressed gentleman swings open the door and swaggers in, and just the sheer like quality of the clothing that he wears causes almost the crowd to part a little bit to welcome him in. And all of the new boys who have only been coming for the last, fortnight or so, all start to peek eagerly at this very dapper looking gentleman. And some of them are, straightening their collars and are, like running some fingers through their hair to try to, pine themselves up. But there is definitely a contingent of people who recognize this man because he's got a bit of a reputation. Some who have frequented this place for a while have taken to calling him the High Roller, and it's because he likes to swoop in and pick one of the boys from the lineup and then take them upstairs after a couple of games of cards. But some of them will definitely not be caught anywhere in his sights because in addition to having a reputation for freely throwing around some cash, he's also got a bit of a reputation for giving a boy a black eye before the night's through.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'm going to call back in briefly on Lady Camilla. We will see. So Lady Camilla, as you're, because we're kind of a bit tight on time tonight, we're probably not going to go through the whole seance in detail. There will be opportunities to meet again with them all if you wish. But is there anything in particular you are looking to do here or to get out of this? Something what's Lady Camilla's interest in this setting, as it were?
Has the information you gave us about the mirror, that Orloff is the one that had gotten it for
Yes.
Madam Sorokin.
Yeah.
Is that something Lady Camilla knows?
Oh yes, no, that's absolutely something you
Okay.
are aware of, or are aware of the rumors anyway. Certainly, yeah.
All right, so I guess one intention that she would have at this point, even though she's not like mirrors, is to assess whether the this artifact is in fact has supernatural powers or not, as it's been rumored to have. The first time she was looking at Madame Sorokin and trying to assess her. Now she's trying to assess the artifact to see if it's something that she could potentially use.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds good. So this will be the information move, and it will once again be a roll with sensitivity, I'm afraid. But
can't she do it with composure in terms of concentration? Because she's not trying to. But how the other people are.
Actually, no, that's fair. I think I might say reason. If you're more just like kind of getting a feel for it as an object of art, as it were, rather than as a psychic focus, as it were.
Right. Yeah. She's not trying to read it psychically.
Yeah.
She knows she can't do that. All right. All right. Oops, I had no dice. There we go. That's a 9.
A 9, perfect. Perfect, I suppose, but
not perfect, but good enough.
good enough. Yeah. So, I think that you will. As you gaze into as you look at the mirror. I think actually Count Orlov will kind of see you like checking the mirror out, and he will kind of lean over to you and say, of course, I hope you find this most edifying, my lady. The mirror was a small gift from me. It was crafted some few years ago, and he speaks quite softly as this sort of thing's going on. They say the metal for the backing was retrieved from a meteorite that fell over St. Petersburg, the Andromedids, in back in the 40s.
Fascinating. Does that account for the strange green glow of the metal? I seem to catch it out of the corner of my eye every once in a while.
Indeed, it's the most unique piece. But and he will kind of look up and smile at Madam Sorokin. Madam Sorokin is a most unique lady, and who would I be if I could not offer gifts to fellow countrymen far from home? But as you are talking to him, you will kind of catch your own reflection briefly in the mirror. Except when you see your face in the mirror, it's like I said, it is murky and indistinct anyway. But for a moment, the face that looks back at you is much younger than you are now. It's back when you were barely more than a girl. And then you kind of, as the light in the room shifts slightly, it goes back to being kind of impassive. And the clue there is a glimpse into another time or place.
Great.
Excellent. So I know we're coming up hard against our finish time tonight, but I do just want to check back in with the goings on in the Limehouse School. So I think Priyanka, what you will find whilst investigating this in the office is not so much the files and the paperwork that stand out to you, but you notice there are like a stack of Bibles in here. They've obviously been donated by some charity or other. They're sort of fairly cheaply printed Bibles, but you will notice that every and you can kind of see just from the edges of it, but they've each had like just a section of pages ripped out of them, and as you kind of flick through them, you will notice that it is the same the same pages have been ripped out in each one of them. And it's basically in the stories of Noah and the Ark have just been pulled out of the books. But I think that is the point, both given the complication and the time. This is the point where you and Alois both have to make your exit as the police are on the scene. Before we go into our dawn phase, I will just ask for our last unseen. So I believe this is Brian, and perhaps quite appropriately, as last orders are called and people start to file out of the pub, how do we see Polly looking after our customers with words or action where needed?
Yeah, we see Polly, comes out from behind the bar and is standing at the exit, saying goodnight to everyone at each person as you leave. But you see that she's any that are still kind of in the mood of enjoying themselves at the bar, that she stops them and gets them to transition and become more serious before she allows them to leave. And a few that are maybe still cuddled up with each other, she makes them split apart, and actually one leaves and the other she makes stay for a bit before they exit separately. And if anyone is taking her too lightly in this, she'll dress them down, and maybe even a few slurs yelled to snap them to seriousness before anyone's allowed to leave.
Awesome, thank you very much. So thank you. We will now roll quickly into our dawn phase, and just for our little clear up. The main thing we'll want to do here is to we'll check in for unseen prompts, which I know we have a couple of for next time. But yeah, so we'll just do the dawn questions now while they are fresh in people's minds. So you did all answer a question, so you can all check that off. You did not resolve a threat, so don't check that one. Then I'll go around quickly. Lady Camila, did you experience an echo in the night?
Sure. It seems like Elle and I were riffing on the emerald green theme back and forth between the unseen scenes and the regular scenes. So that was lovely.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Thank you. Did you deliver a chilling, dead-eyed monologue about the horrors of the world?
I don't know how chilling it was, but it was dead-eyed about children being tortured by the legacy of their parents.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And did you engage in a secret sexual rendezvous with a commoner? I think we might argue the secrecy of it, but I think it's close enough.
Hargrave House is secret, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Hughes.
And Fujisawa, did you experience an echo in the night?
Yes, the emerald green and also the crying child.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. Did you ensure your employer got credit for your triumphs?
I did not.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And did you demonstrate obsequious behavior towards your employer in front of others?
I think in the scene with the Mother Superior.
Yeah, no, I'd agree, definitely. Brilliant, thank you very much. Priyanka, did you experience an echo in the night?
I did not.
No worries, yeah. Did you have a face-to-face encounter with a dark entity?
I do not think so either.
No, I don't think we've quite got there yet. And did you perform a ritual?
Not with a roll. I did a tarot card reading.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely cool. That is perfect. It doesn't have to be something that's rolled for, but yeah, no, I think you definitely did. I also felt like almost that scene in the church felt ritual-ish as well. So I think that's cool too. That's great. Yeah, now, Alois, did you experience an echo in the night? No worries. Did you let down Hargrave House while serving your society?
I've hidden a clue.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And did you watch someone you were interested in from afar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we definitely saw that. Awesome, thank you. So yeah, obviously mark a point of XP for each one of those that you ticked off. Obviously, if you level up, feel free to choose one of your advancements. But obviously you don't need to do that right now. You can take your time to do that over the upcoming week. And that is where we will leave things for this evening. I'm going to stop our recording now. So if you have been watching, thank you very much.